There's some things in game, if you're looking for a coach or you're getting coached, that should be customizable, and there's some things that shouldn't. So what I mean by that is there are universal, what I would consider like truths or things that are optimal in game, that shouldn't be customized. So like we could pick like some silly examples, but like if I had a student come to me and say like, listen, I don't like opening. Okay, I'm gonna go out to the club, but I'm just gonna sit down and I'm gonna wait for someone to come and open me. All right, that's what I prefer. I'd be like, motherfucker, that's not you. There's not an option. All right, like unless you're really fucking good looking and you're crazy pre-selection, that's not happening. You might get open once in a night. Okay, we're going out there and we're opening. Now, if someone said, look, my style is to be like aggressively direct. I just want to go up to a girl and be like, listen, I want to take you home right now. Right? If your style is aggressively direct, we're changing that. Okay. It's not happening. Like there are some clear stages of games or truth in games or things that are optimal in game that are going to be customizable. Now, around that, of course, like when we're talking about sexually escalating and building sexual authority, everyone should do that. Like that is a fundamental of our game. That's what we're teaching. That's what you're going to do. But the way you do that is going to be customizable. There might be some guys that, as Eric likes to say, like to tie girls to the roof. Okay, if that's the thing that you're a little bit more open to and you're into and you want to like practice and try, yeah, we can talk about that. That can be your like sexual DHV. That's gonna be how you do it. If you prefer like very slow sensual set, like we're gonna learn and teach you a little bit about tantra, and that's gonna be your way in. Like we're gonna talk about like the spiritual connection to sex. We're gonna talk about like the meditative approach to sex. If you're not into either of those and you just like, hey, fuck it, I just like eating pussy and having sex, then eating pussy is going to be like our way in. We're going to talk about like how to get the girl out of her head into her body, slow everything down, build her up, able to give her like multiple orgasms. That's the in we're going to have. So it's customizable 100%, but there's certain structures in the game that aren't. And one of those is going to be, as I said, sexually escalating, getting into the point quicker, um, having a sexual and casual frame, and dealing with objections. So yeah, I think that some things that should be customizable and some that just shouldn't.
Yeah, so I think that if a guy is too far on the extreme in one way or the other, right? He wants to be super direct or he doesn't want to do anything. Certainly those outliers are too extreme. And I'm going to tell a guy, look, I'm all for customizing your game, but once you go to a certain breaking point, it's a breaking point. Your available pool of options has shrunk now too significantly. I don't think I can help you do this. So there does need to be a degree of open-mindedness. Now, the the mate selection theories that are predominant in the community right now are evolution based and economic based mate selection theories, right? The idea that women want the strong go-getter who's pre-selected by women, who's resourceful and so forth, right? Survival value. The other predominant mate selection theory in the community right now is economic-based mate selection theory, which is the idea that women are constantly judging a guy's value and they're trying to get the most bang for their buck. There are other mate selection theories outside of that. The one that I'm the biggest fan of is what's called IMT, ideal mate theory. And that is the idea that every woman has a certain ideal in her mind of what her partner looks like. And not only that, but the process, the way it all goes down. So, all of the standard value, I call it, that's the economic based and evolution based mate selection theories, all the standard value stuff I think is important for guys to learn and understand. Then there is unique value, which is what do you like? What style of game do you want to run? And guys will fall on one end of that spectrum or the other. They'll be like super standard. They want to just appeal to as many women as possible. Some guys don't give a shit about all of that, and they want to find a woman that likes them for their own unique personality. And maybe they're not a super dominant, masculine, alpha type of dude. Once again, though, if he falls too far on that unique end of the spectrum, I'm going to say, listen, dude, you're going to have a tough go. You're going to have a tough time finding a woman that's going to accept you in all of these divergent ways. So if a guy's accepting of that and understanding of that, I'll often still work with him. I'll still, do my best to find something uh, that's gonna suit his needs. Yeah. So where are we going with that? Am I tying that into a bigger point here, or did I kind of explain myself? Oh, one other thing I wanted to say. You said that the structure doesn't change. See, that's what's unique about my structure. It's not just a structure, it's a superstructure. I do have interchangeable steps. So you can do my elements in order, element one, element two, element three, element four, or you can go element one, element three, element two, element four. You can even go element two, element one, element three, element four. So my structure actually is rearrangeable. There's not just a linear path. My method allows for lateral movements and even quantum moves. So that's
Want to
just a little
move. So like
primer.
you can like close before you open. What do you mean like you switch your structure?
Yeah. No, you can't close before you open. But you can actually go like the friend zone route, for example. If she's not available, if it's not the time to sexually escalate, if she's even shutting down attraction building, I'm running element one style game. I'm trying to spike attraction and it's getting shut down. I'm getting pushback from that because the social
So
situation
would
is
you
not
ever
allowing for it. I would
so would you
shift
ever friend
into
zone later? Like that it's still linear to me. Like you wouldn't like sexually escalate and then friend zone, right?
I mean, time is linear. Time is still linear, right? But my model is not necessarily linear, as in sequential, step one, step two, step three, step four. Those
Okay, so
steps
give
do
me an
change
example where
order.
you'd switch steps because you I can understand that you'd friend zone before sexualizing, but I'd never sexualize and then friend zone. Can you give me an example where you'd be swapping and it works both ways?
Where I would be swapping.
Yeah, you
So
said like you can swap one
yeah,
for
no,
five.
yeah, certainly. So you can go in and build attraction, for example. You can trigger some attraction, you can sexualize. And then for whatever reason, if you think it's going to assist in moving the interaction forward, or if there's some kind of logistical situation that pops up, like her friends arrive, you can switch into a different mode. You can switch into element two mode, and you can just focus on building social bonds with her friends. You can take attraction and sort of put it behind your back and focus more on element two, right? And then you can phase element one back in. So there are times where, uh, you know, the timeline changes. The timeline changes. The time doesn't change, but the uh, sequential ordering of the elements can change. And this is something that I've never seen in any model out there, including the model of my sensei, Mystery. Mystery's method is a sequential step-by-step system. It's attraction, comfort, seduction. Mine is not attraction, comfort, seduction. Mine can even be like yours. Mine can be attraction, shave off a little bit of element two, I call it, and get to physical bonding.
I think the way you look at structure might be different than me. Okay. So when I'm thinking of structure, it's big, broad steps that you're thinking about taking in the interaction. So the big, broad step at the beginning is going to be opening, transitioning. You're going to build value. That includes the sexual authority. Once you have value, you're going to escalate a little bit more. Then we're going to seed the pull, get objections, and pull. These are the big structures. Now,
I
I
don't think
never,
I, I don't think
I
I'm,
never,
I don't, I really quick, I don't think I'm misunderstanding your definition of structure. I've
well,
19
let me
years in the
explain it
game. I
because I haven't explained it
understand.
yet.
No, I understand what a structured method is. A structured
No,
method
yeah, I
means you
haven't
do
even
this,
explained
and
my
then you do
structure yet.
this, and then you do this, and then you do this. That's structure.
Okay.
That's,
Do you
you
want to
know,
wait till I explain it and then let me know if you have the right understanding?
okay.
All right. So these are the big structures. But I think the misinterpretation people often make is like, oh, okay, so I'm not going to sexualize it all off the open or when I transition or when I build attraction. I'm clearly just going to wait till the sexualization phase. That's not the point. That's just when most of that happens. All of this should be like a progression. So if I think about the structure, actually, Ash, do you mind if I pull up a whiteboard here? Well, actually, I'm not host. Never mind. When I think about structure, it's there's elements of this you're building up, but it's always going to peak and accelerate the most during those phases. So when I think about opening, I have like a sexual smirk on my face. I have sexual thoughts. I have sexual subcoms. Now, I'm not at the sexualization structure phase, but that's what I'm doing. Now, obviously, if I'm in attraction phase and then the friends come in and try to take her away, I don't turn to the friend and be like, I'm in attraction structure phase. I just have to keep building attraction. Obviously, I'm going to be like, oh, hey, introducing me to a friend. Hey, what's up, guys? Blah, blah. But then I'm going back to, I still need to build attraction here. If I'm at the seeding pool phase and I'm trying to deal with objections, and then the friends come in, obviously, right? Hey, introduce me to your friends. What's up? But I'm still in that stage of the interaction. That's still like my mission or my priority. I think a lot of people think when they hear structure, it's like I do all of that here and all of that here, which is not the same. So when you say your modal stuff, all it sounds like you're saying is if something pops up, you just need to be calibrated to that situation, which I think is what I assume, I hope, is what everyone thinks about when they're gaming.
No, see, this is that's highly unique about my structure is the objectives and the tactical and high level strategic goals can change. We ultimately want to bring all four elements to what I call equilibrium. Equilibrium is when you bring them all to basically their fullest point and then you spiral all the way down the vortex. Okay. Uh, yeah, you can smirk at the name. Okay. I know it's kind of cheesy, but that was the point, man. I wanted to come up with a catchy name. You know what I mean? Something memorable, right? The vortex, you know?
So
Say it to
what is your
yourself.
structure then?
Marcus,
Like,
Marcus,
what,
say it to yourself a few times. Say it. Say the vortex of love.
bro, I'm not gonna lie,
Say
it
it.
sounds so
Say
lame.
it,
I can't.
Marcus.
I
Say
can't
it,
do it.
Marcus. Say it.
Sorry, no, it's not happening.
But no,
So,
seriously. No,
all
to
right, listen,
seriously answer your question though, there are times where I'll focus on building more of a friendship bond with her. Yes, the objective is still at some point to phase in attraction, but I can genuinely put attraction aside. I talk about this on path 4, by the way. So this is what I call path 4. Let's say the woman has just experienced a major death in her family. Her dog just died. She lost her job. She just overcame some horrific car accident, what have you. And she is genuinely not open to the interaction advancing attraction wise. I may go into element 2 mode, even though, yes, in the back of my mind, I'm attracted to her and I hope something happens later down the road. I will build a friendship with her. And then later, attraction will come. So I will actually focus on what may normally be like comfort, for example, in Mystery's method. Mystery's method is attraction, comfort, seduction, right? I will actually put comfort before attraction in some cases, right?
yeah, so
Uh,
I do think fundamentally, I just disagree with all this. I think fundamentally, comfort and friend zoning should just not be in any structure whatsoever. I think
See,
it's just
that's
like,
the difference,
I,
though. I don't fear the friend zone like a lot of guys do. I will
well, I
let a
think you
woman,
should. I think
I
you really
will,
should feel the friend zone.
I will
That's the
let,
problem.
I will let a woman friend zone me sometimes if logistics kind of force that hand. And my mentality, my frame, if you will, is okay, we're going the friend zone route. Let's see how that works out for you. And then I trigger attraction indirectly over a period of time, and that artificial friend zone crumbles away. If I have organic chemistry with the woman, my frame is that organic chemistry is going to expand, and that artificial friend zone is going to crumble away like a powdery, artificial frame.
Yeah, my problem with all this is this whole method sounds like just a huge lack of control power. It seems very reactive. And like even when you use like words like organic chemistry, I don't believe in organic chemistry. I believe in like us creating the chemistry.
See,
I
that's
think the
something
big
I
difference
talk
here
about. I
is
talk about that in my book too. Is attraction something that exists or doesn't exist? Or is it something we can build? I can't answer that question. I don't know. But what I do believe is if there is chemistry, we can fail to uncover it if we don't game properly. So whether it's something that we conjure up or whether it exists organically and we need to uncover it and peel back the layers, I do believe that. So
the
listen, here's the other thing. I'm not saying that we have to go this route. I'm saying my model gives us that maneuverability. We can go the friend zone route. We can actually let her friend zone us and then bring in attraction later. We can go from attraction to physical bonding. We can go from attraction to psychological bonding to physical bonding. We can mix these elements up in many different ways to get them all to equilibrium so that she spirals down the funnel, down the
yeah, I
vortex of
guess
love. Say it, Marcus, say it, down the
not
vortex of
not
love.
not unless someone super chats us. There's yeah, I mean, even the fact that like I hear, I'm not sure if we can build chemistry or something we have to uncover. Like, I think that's a testament to maybe something missing here because I have zero question whether we can like build chemistry or attraction. Like that is just it's a fact. It's just so clearly obvious. There's things that I see my students do that one repels the fuck out of the girl, right? Or like ends up in a friend zone. And
Mhm.
there's two, some things that I see my students do repeatedly that I can like point to that build chemistry and attraction and make these girls like have desire and want to chase and want to like be with these guys. Like to be at a point where you're like, I'm not sure if it's built or like uncovered, kind of points to that fact that I feel like you're waiting for it to be uncovered. Like that's where the waiting
Semantics.
happens.
Semantics. This is semantics
Well,
now.
semantics
Look,
matter, right? Like the way we describe things absolutely
passive,
matter. Like
passive,
yeah, go on.
passive game versus active game. That's another style of game. Some guys prefer a passive style of game. Like you said, if a guy says, I don't
You
want to
may
do
want to
anything,
prefer a bad style of game. That's fine. But my point is, like, Again, like giving the analogy, like if you're in BJJ and someone's like, "Hey, I just prefer this style of takedown," and that's all they do, that's not the best style. Like if you had a student, you'd correct that. Like going back to the
But
point
that
of
is the
like they
thing.
just prefer it, you can prefer something that's wrong. You can
Let
prefer
me
something
give you
that's
an
bad. I think
example.
you
I
should.
was just watching an interview with John Danaher, right? He is the coach of Gordon Ryan and Giancarlo Bedoni. I think I'm saying his name right. But he talked about how some of his fighters have a more active style of game. They're very, very proactive, always going on the offensive. Gordon Ryan, who is one of the greatest grapplers of all time, some people say the greatest grappler of all time, he does not necessarily always go on the offensive. He gets himself into optimal positions, he tires his opponents out, and then he goes into offensive cycles and wins the fight. So he does go into offensive cycles. You can't just like hold your ground because eventually you'll run out of energy. Your endurance will burn out and you'll lose the fight. So you do have to try to finish the fight. And I actually do believe that Gordon Ryan is probably very capable of going on offensive cycles as well. If you watch some of his younger years in jiu-jitsu, he was much more proactive and aggressive. But now, the most dominant grappler of all time, he is not always on an offensive cycle. He will get into positions, he'll cook his opponents, and then he'll go into an offensive cycle and finish the fight.
Yeah,
So
but if
what you're
he turned
saying,
around and said like, "Hey, I just want to lie on my back and not do anything for 15 minutes," and then this guy keeps getting fucking tapped out, like we wouldn't say that's the best style, right? Like if he is killing it at his craft and he's doing really well, and then he says, "Okay, the best style is to like pull back a little bit, then have an explosive thing and pull back a little bit." In BJJ, I'd be like, "All right, cool. I think that's it sounds great, man. We should try that." But in our style of game, if someone says like, "Hey, you should probably be a little bit more indirect when you go super direct and you're not that attractive, you get blown out a lot," I'd probably be like, "Hey, it looks like indirect. I've tried that. It seems to be better." If I'm in a situation where someone says like, "Hey, you should build more sexual authority, you should set a better frame with the girl, you should deal with objections, you get to close quicker and it leads to better retention, and this girl's more into you, she says she has a more satisfying experience," I'd be like, "Hey, maybe we should do that then. That sounds great."
this goes back to what I was talking about, though, where I agree with what you're saying, by the way. Again, there's a spectrum, right? You have the passive end and the active end. If a guy is too passive, he doesn't want to do anything, he just wants to sit back and not approach. I'm going to have to be the bad guy and say, hey, guy, listen, I'm all for helping you calibrate your game, but you're not getting anywhere with this. You're not getting anywhere with this, right? Or the guy that's super proactive, like you said, that just wants to walk up and like try to tie a girl up right there on the spot in the club. Like, no, that's too active. Okay. If we're talking about sexual escalation within the confines of what we're talking about right now. So I am a fan of teaching a guy sort of the entire spectrum and then helping him to find a style that works best for him. And this goes back to what I was saying, though. You
But
have
you're not teaching the entire
optimized,
spectrum. But you're not.
you, I'm not teaching them the entire
No.
spectrum.
But if there's a spectrum, right? If there's a
Mm-hmm,
spectrum, there's tying up in the club, right?
mm-hmm.
And then there's friend zoning for 10 years. Like these are the two spectrums, right? You would be like more of a here, let's say, which is like if she friend zones you, it's okay. You want to like uncover, like to see if there's sexual tension there. If there's not, just hold out and like try build more attraction. That's kind of where you sit. I'm saying yeah, if you want to tie up in the club, like maybe bring some ropes, I'm happy to teach that. But it's like I'm more of a here, which, as I said, is uncovering their sexual fantasies, doing that. Like that's not something that you teach or that you tried or you explored. Like that's my point. Like,
I
I've
think that
known
I'm
this side of the
more
spectrum over here.
I think that I'm more balanced and versatile than you think. And I've actually gotten this feedback from women as well. I've had some women that thought I was pure trouble. They're like, the second I met you, I thought this guy's trouble. And then I was pleasantly surprised to learn that you have a sweet side. And then I've also had women tell me that they thought I was just sort of this normal, like whatever, friendly dude, and they were pleasantly surprised to learn that I had a naughty streak. Okay, so I guess it depends if you're looking out of your, you know, right brain or left brain, which side of the spectrum am I on?
I
I
mean,
actually
yeah, I mean,
believe
all respect,
I
but like if a girl was to tell me like, hey, I think you're trouble, or like, hey, you have like a naughty side to you, to me, that's still like on the other side of the spectrum. Like that's not an indication of, oh, okay, this guy knows how to give me like an amazing sexual experience. This guy is a little bit more kinky than most guys, very dominant and direct. Like these are not the adjectives that I'd expect from that perception, right?
I don't know, man. I mean, if you're saying that my set point is skewed, I don't know. I think your set point is skewed. I think you're too far on one end of the spectrum, and you're saying this is the norm. This is I can
No,
get
no, no, I
80.
want to be clear. It's not the norm. What I'm suggesting is
Uh-huh.
we're probably the only people that I'm aware of that teach this. Um, yeah, I'm just trying to like
There are other coaches that teach fast escalation.
no,
It's
no,
kind
you
of a
can like
trend right
again,
now.
I'm not teaching fast escalation. That's not even what I call it. What I teach is sexual authority, which leads often to much quicker escalation than other methods, right? But I'm not sitting here just be like escalate fast, right? I think, I want to escalate with calibration, but when you build sexual authority, it's going to be quick, right? You don't have to wait like too long. Um,
So
and
it's kind of,
I
can I just clarify real quick? Is sexual authority essentially like sexual pre-selection, almost like you're planting the idea in the woman's head that you are a very sexual person, you've had lots of sexual experiences with lots of women, you know how it goes down, so she can comfortably fall into your sexual frame because she's in good hands. Is that sort
There's a
of
part of it. So
okay?
there's a couple of elements here. There's sexual understanding, and then there's sexual competency, and then the last one in this like escalation ladder is going to be like sexual emotion. Okay, but sexual understanding is showing her a few things. One, I understand what your pain points are. I understand what you're missing from sexual experience and from men in general, right? And two, I understand what you're looking for, right? I can intuitively pick this up and I can tell you what it is, and then we can expand on this further. I can understand it more, but I have a sexual understanding of who you are as a person. I don't think and most guys that she's going to experience aren't going to get that. Most people she's around, or even her best friends, are going to think like, oh, she's a nice girl, she's sweet, she doesn't have sexual fantasies. Now I'm going to come and say, I know you have them, and I think these are what they are, and the girl's going to be like, holy fuck, that's true. So first part, sexual understanding. Next part is not just understanding her, but showing her that you're competent. So this can be through like pre-selection, it can be through stories, but usually it's going to be showing her like, not only do I understand your pain point is like a dominance, not only do I understand that, okay, maybe you want to be tied from a ceiling, or it could be like choke, spank, slapped. It could be like leading a little bit more dominant. But I know how to do that. Okay. Like I don't just understand you want to be tied up. I know how to do that and I can show you and I can do it. Or it could be like whatever the pain point is. And then the last point is like sexual emotion. So it's not just I understand you, it's not just hey, I'm competent in this, but I'm going to bring you to a place where you start feeling that a little bit more. So this is going to be through more subcoms, it's going to be through lowering the language, it's going to be through dirty talking. Now she's at a point where we've ticked off, I understand her on a deep level. We've ticked off, we can give this to you, this experience that you want. And then we've ticked off, we've gotten to the place that you mentally and like physically are wanting this. So that's what I consider sexual authority.
So here's what I would say, Marcus. Your method actually falls under the larger umbrella of my method. And I think it's great, by the way. But so if I
You
were to
need to explain that to
translate,
me because every
if
single time
if
I've mentioned this or asked you what you
if
do, like
if
you've never
if
mentioned anything like this. You even
if
explicitly said this is not what you do or not what you've done before.
I've never said this isn't what I've done or I've never done it before, okay?
Well, you need
It's
to
an
correct me because I
option.
asked, like, do you kept using the example of tying
It's an
up, and I said, how
option.
many
So
times have
look,
you asked this?
listen,
And you said,
let me just
basically
show
zero.
you how this would fall under my umbrella. Okay. So element one, attraction. Element two, a psychological bond. And there's a logical component to it. It's not just building rapport and emotion based. There's actually a logical component to it. Element three is a physical bond and also deals with spatial awareness. Element four is an emotional bond. Okay. And to get a woman to fall in love, because I don't just take a guy from meat to sex, I actually take a guy from meat to falling in love. All right. To fall in love, you want all of these elements spiraling up to what I call equilibrium. And then you go down the funnel, down the vortex of love, Marcus, and you fall in love. Sorry, shameless self promotion right there. Forgive me. But so the way that I translate what you're doing to my method here is you're building attraction. Okay. I think you're a better looking guy than you give yourself credit for, by the way. We talked on the last call how you see, do you think it's my looks? I don't think you're a bad looking dude. Okay. But you're building attraction with these women. All right. The element two component of this is that you are making them feel comfortable with you. You have different frames that you're imposing on the interaction, macro level frames, paradigms that you have, like women are sexual, sex is good. And then also micro level frames, right? Demonstrating sexual authority. These are what I call micro level frames. They're inner and outer game hybrid tactics because they're a belief that you have and they're a subsequent set of behaviors. You're saying things and doing things. So you're building attraction, you're building element two. Element three is physical. Do you touch, by the way? Do you engage in like light contact and touch and so forth when you first meet them?
No, not very often.
Okay, fair enough. And you know what? Actually, I don't necessarily touch right away either. Okay. The whole touch early and touch often mantra, I don't think is always necessary. But what you are doing most likely though is you're being aware of your space around her. Spatial awareness. Like, how are you standing in relation to hers? Like, are you standing too close? Are you standing too far away? You're calibrating. This is all element 3 stuff. And then you're actually trying to trigger emotions, sexual emotions, to be more specific. So you are, you have a system. Here, let me take it a step further. The tactics that you're using, direct, you're typically using direct. If there's a direct, indirect spectrum, you're more on the direct end of the spectrum. Are
Well, no, I
these moves
usually,
that you're
if you're talking about opening, I always mostly open indirect.
fair? So opening, you're using indirect, but you're transitioning at some point to more direct tactics. Would you say that these tactics are high intensity or low intensity? Are they meant to be felt on like a visceral level by her, or are they meant to sort of subconsciously infect her?
Are they meant to subconsciously infect her
When
or?
you are doing some of these more direct tactics, are you looking to have a visceral like impact emotionally that she can feel, or are you looking to kind of
Yeah, I mean,
subconsciously?
all of games should have an emotional impact on her, not just
Well, I
this.
would argue that there's an indirect way of using tactics where she feels it, but it creeps up on her slowly. It's like kind of trying to affect her subconsciously, which is like Ross Jeffries style, a lot of conversational hypnosis and NLP.
Well, I don't think these are binary.
So,
I
but
think the second method is still going to affect her on an emotional level, right?
So you're using direct tactics, you're using high intensity tactics, at least to a certain degree. And again, there's a spectrum. On the 1 to 10 scale, you're at least past 0. If you were below 0, she wouldn't be consciously detecting what you're doing. Okay. And then the final dimension, if you will, is positivity and negativity. So you are generally trying to do things to make her gravitate to you. You're not pushing her away. You're trying to push away the objections in her head. You're not negging. You're not doing lots of back turns and like pushing her away. You are generally trying to build a positive, inviting experience for her. So I totally get your style of game. You can create an
Yeah, no, but
optimized system. Like it's an
okay.
optimized system. It's not a comprehensive superstructure like I'm outlining. You have optimized a system that works for you. Open and direct. Do this, da 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 da. It's step by step by step. And I'm here to argue that those steps are more interchangeable and flexible than you may think. You keep setting this frame
Well,
that
no,
wait, let me
listen,
say
listen.
something, Marcus. You keep
Okay, go
setting
on.
this frame that there's this level of game that exists that you have dialed down that I don't understand. Forgive me,
Yeah, that's
brother,
what I'm
but
saying.
it sounds like you don't have the comprehensive understanding of game that I do.
Okay, well, I clearly disagree with that. Yeah, I think like you said, my style of game is within yours. Yeah, I want to clarify here. You could tell me a type of opener that you do that is game changing, that no one's done before and is really amazing. Um, so say for example, you're like, okay, I have this opener where I go to the club with 20 girls, okay, and they're all super hot, and my opener is going up and I say, hey, sorry, are you with my group? And you point to the 20 goals. That could be your opener. I'm like, all right, that's pretty cool. You have a lot of pre-selection there. It's going to go pretty well. And
I
I've
haven't
never
heard that one.
actually, yeah, I've never done that before.
That
I've never
sounds
rocked
like a
up to the
Michael
club with,
Sartain move right there.
yeah, but say Michael Sartain came and he said, that's my opener. I would not turn to Michael Sartain and be like, oh, the indirect opener. Yep, that's in my game. Yep, I do that. And he's like, oh, so you've gone to the club with 20 girls before and pointed to them and said, are you with my group? And I'm like, no, 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 I haven't done that, but that's in my system. I have indirect openers in my system. Like, clearly it's very different. Just because you have like attraction or something in your system doesn't mean that you're using sexual authority the way I've used it. And I think like it's fine. Like clearly you haven't used this. It's just clearly simple. You haven't tried this. You haven't used this. You just don't have any data on it whatsoever. And so I think there is something missing there. When it comes to the structure, again, I'm not saying that a structure is this, and you have to do that. We base it a lot off of compliance. Now you have a general structure. You can't close before you open. You're generally going to open. You're generally going to build attraction. You're generally going to escalate, get some objections. You're going to handle those objections. You're going to pull. But we base it off a compliance system. So if you're in your set and you get non-compliance, right? You need to figure out why. Now, typically, it's going to be, we have a circle that we demonstrate this with, a pie chart, but typically it's going to be something like attraction. So you might need a bit more attraction. It might be emotion. You might get her a little bit more turned on. It might be a logistical objection. So maybe she's got friends there, or maybe, again, she's got to get up in the morning. Might be a limiting belief. So maybe there's, hey, I, don't want sex on the first night. Maybe it's a ladder issue. So you're escalating too quickly and you made a mistake there and you need to pull back a little bit. So you base it off the compliance that you have. I'm not sitting here and saying you do step one, step two, step three, and it doesn't matter what happens, you go to step three. No, obviously, if someone comes in, there's an interrupt, you need to work around this. You need to be more flexible. But it's helpful for students if I just say, go in and do your thing, right? Like they need a structure. They need A, B, and C. They need to know what they need to be focusing on. And if something happens, you deal with the compliance. So yeah, there's nothing so far in your system. Maybe you need to explain it again that I'm missing here. But I feel like there's something in my system that you're definitely missing.
I don't think there's anything in your system that I'm missing from a conceptual level. I believe that if I sat down and listened to you teach your system for 8 hours and you broke it down in like extreme detail and you gave me tons of examples and actually things like specific things you say and do, I think there would be a ton of information to learn about that, right? This is why I said maybe we should frame this second debate as more of a conversation because then it'll be less adversarial, but it is a debate. And the debate is what style of game is most, effective the majority of the time. So my model, we can build dozens of systems out of my
Hang on.
elements.
This is important. When you say what is
Mhm.
more effective majority of the time, are
Mhm.
we talking about someone on the street? Like what would they do that works majority of the time? Or are we talking about if we had a student that we could coach for 2 months and then send out there to game, what would be more optimal?
No, yeah, obviously, if you coach a guy, I already said, look, Marcus, I'm not doubting that you have a system that you've refined and that you can teach people. And if they go out and they practice it, they'll get better and better at it. It's similar to a fast closing method for selling cars. You can teach guys how to sell cars fast. It's just generally not a good policy. It's a little bit of a better policy. Take them for a test drive, find out their needs, make them feel comfortable, and then close the deal. And then learn to spot opportunities. If a
Again,
customer comes in and they're ready to buy a car right then and there, don't fucking talk them out of the sale. Okay, so you can certainly spot these opportunities for fast escalation, but I believe that, and I know you hate me using that term, fast escalation, forgive me. There's a time and place to demonstrate sexual authority early. I just don't think it's the norm. I don't think we should be sexualizing interactions quite so fast. When we do, I think it should be more indirect. I think it should be more sub-communication. And we should focus more on just kind of laughing our way to the bedroom. We're having a
okay.
good
So
time, and then, oh, boom, we end up hooking up,
so
right?
yeah, I think
If you're talking about getting girls tied up and doing all sorts of kinky shit, then yeah, you don't want to like laugh the girl all the way to your fucking sex dungeon and then surprise, I'm going to tie you up, right? Again, I'm exaggerating a little bit here for humor. You can laugh every now and then. It's cool. But no,
no, I got
anyway,
sex.
I'll digress. So
So I think, yeah, my point here is time is arbitrary. Okay. I'm basically going to teach guys that you should build high levels of attraction, you should build a casual sexual frame. And when you do this effectively, it's going to be quick. It shouldn't be quicker than, it shouldn't be so fast that it creates objections or concerns. If you're just focused on time, and I don't teach guys, hey, you have to escalate like within this amount of time. You have 30 minutes and you need to be, no, it's you try to build as much attraction as you possibly can, as quick as you can. You try to build as much sexual authority as quick as you can. But when I say as quick as you can, what I'm saying here is you don't do it in a way that's needy and chasey. You still need to have the girl chasing you. And when you do that, you're going to have situations where the girl perceives you in a better light. You're going to have situations where you can have sex quicker, which means you're going to have better attention, which means you get to display more of yourself, which means, I mean, when I looked at the literature here about should you wait or not, a lot of the studies were saying it's actually you end up with better relationship outcomes when you wait until you're married to have sex, right? And all the reasons that it gave here for these normies that don't know what they're doing is because when you wait until sex, people tend to pick more on communication style. They pick on like asexual topics. They tend to feel like less shame. They tend to have, they say better sex because they have more time to talk about it. It's like just take all of these attributes and add them into the beginning of the interaction, which is what we do. And then we find, again, I get feedback of every single one I have sex with. A lot of our students are doing that now. And time again, the type of response they get is, it feels nice to be myself, feels nice that I'm not judged, feels nice that I get to have incredible getting tied from the ceiling sex. Because let's admit it, 90% of girls have sexually dominant fantasies. I think 50%, something like some studies, 50% have great fantasies. Okay. So yeah, I mean, we can act like, oh, it's just for the girls with these like small percent. No, the issue is most girls want dominance and there's a dominance gap that honestly, like when you teach your students this, they're missing as well. Is like they don't realize, like you're kind of being like laughing away to the bedroom, being like very slow, but a lot of girls don't want that. And so when we talk about optimal, I think it is optimal to try build sexual attraction as quick as you can, try get to sex as quick as you can, have amazing, incredible sex, and then the girls will want to come back. And I think like the only reason that you think otherwise is because you're missing the skills to do so. So obviously that you're stuck with your own bias and your own data here, but I feel like we're
So
going to go in circles now, unless there's something you
time
want to
time is
pull up
not
specifically.
arbitrary.